Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Brian and I are doing a no-run-through review for Android Netrunner, the card game. And this was Brad's favorite game, so I indulged him by playing it with him, because no one else will. No, this was your #1 game of all time for quite some time, until it basically died. How long has it been dead?
Wow.
I
think I sold all my stuff about 4 years ago.
Is that when it died? So about 4 years?
Yeah, there's still a fan. Like, there's this hardcore group of people that have kept it going. Like, they're making their own content, having it printed and stuff. But it just isn't like there's not the organized play isn't around here like it was and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of Fantasy Flight's thing where they go all in on like competitive living card games. And then, because I know Legend of the Five Rings was going on for quite some time, and then it just died. Like, it seems like they have a lifespan of 5 years, maybe.
Yeah, because this one came out in 2014.
Okay.
So it was.
So yeah, it died in like 2019, which is when you said you sold all your stuff about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I never got into this. I usually don't like tournament play because it just I find it too frustrating. Because like if I'm playing a casual game like a Magic or something, and then I'm getting mana screwed or something, if it's a tabletop experience, it's kind of like, yeah, you're frustrated, but it doesn't really matter. Tournaments, there's stakes to it, so I'm even more frustrated. So I never got into this. So I'll let you take it away.
I think, well, back when this was going hard, like the community for this, the competitive community was awesome. Like they were very welcoming to new players. They were good.
Gotcha.
That's what got me into it a lot. Was just the how nice they were, and like they weren't assholes about it. And then the reason I like this, I don't care for Magic, but I like this is because everybody has access to the same cards.
Yeah.
Like, being the LCG style, I think that was another thing. So it actually rewarded your own deck building and stuff.
That's true.
And everybody had the same. I mean, you could run against the same deck much of other people.
There's clearly, I mean, like with a lot of kinds of these games, there's always a meta, and as an LCG, it's actually easier to have that meta because everyone has access to the same cards.
Right.
Whereas in Magic, it's like, hey, here's the meta with these insanely expensive cards, so not everyone can do it. So therefore, the LCG style is way better because it's like, oh yeah, that's a really good runner deck. Oh, what pack is that? I'll buy that pack so I can play with that as well. Versus Magic, it's like, oh, that's a really good deck. Yeah, this was $8,000. It's like, you need to get a fucking life.
Well, and that was another thing. Like, this was early before, because like Marvel Champions, they've kind of figured it out. Like, you could just go and buy a pack, a deal of a hero.
Of a character, yeah.
And you could do that with this. You got runners like that.
Okay.
And stuff with this too. But they came with more of the general cards to use for deck building.
I see.
So like, and they were sought after. So I mean, it was more like you needed to buy the packs because, like, if you found a cool deck online, you probably had to pick up several different little sets. Yeah. But
I do, and so caveat for this review here, Brad, this is his expertise. I have played this game a handful of times, so there's a lot of nuances that I don't know. So all of my experience is coming from limited plays, but also from playing other competitive card games similar to Magic, which I know this is not. But I feel like if they remade this game, it would probably be cleaner and more accessible to play, because they've just figured out that formula of how, like, their precons for Marvel Champions, I think, are great.
Yeah.
And they're only enhanced, obviously, when you deconstruct. You always make precons better. You do that with Magic. Hey, I'm going to buy a Commander precon deck. This is really good. Okay, well, I'm going to add these cards and add these cards to make it way better. Based off what you were saying, and kind of, because we played with the precons, it seems like the precons for this are actually pretty bad.
Overall, there's a lot of cards that aren't the greatest that came with them when they were trying to showcase.
Like you said, you're like, okay, well, they kind of show you different avenues of what Android Netrunner is meant to be. Like, hey, here's Noise. He's your mill guy. Okay, great. But not his precon. This is showing you what he can do. Now buy all these other packs to make him really good.
And to be fair, in this box, there was another run. You know, these two other runs, they also have viruses too.
Yeah.
Maybe when you go into the deck building aspect, you could have added viruses from those runners into that deck.
Exactly.
An influence card. You get 15 influence that you can take from other decks and put into your deck. So you could have.
You can make him better. That's what I'm saying. Is like if this came out now, his precon would be probably a pretty good mill deck versus kind of not like I can almost taste the mill. Like I kind of did it a little bit. Whereas how you were saying you ran noise a lot, you know exactly what cards to put in to like cycle. Oh hey, this is a 1-cost virus. Play it, pop it, then put it back out, and then just constantly pull it to where they're just basically the core's doing this the entire time.
Pretty much. I could do 2 or 3 cards a turn.
Exactly. And this pre-con, it was kind of like, well, and I was looking through, I'm like, okay, maybe I just didn't get a lot of viruses in my hand opening up. He has like 10. And they're all one-time use, and it's like, well, you have a 45 card. I don't know how many cards are in your deck.
It's 49.
Yeah, so I'm like, not really a viable strategy over here.
Well, in this one, and then if this guy that I was going to play against you, he's all about siphoning all your money.
Yeah.
So I would use him, and he would take all your credits from you.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, and you can explain this to me with your vast amount of plays. How do you starve the core? Because I felt like as the runner, and every time I've always played the runner. I feel like the runner's always starved because he has no information. You have to.
It's the hidden information of being the corp. You need to pay attention to how much money they have.
Yep.
Run early and often, because if you run early, you're not going to have programs to trash.
Okay.
You're going to force me to spend money to res ice, and if you make me cash poor, then you're going to be running through for free on an unresed ice. You need to kind of pick.
Gotcha.
Because like I wasn't going to be able to res this one until I scored that one agenda because I didn't have another agenda to sacrifice.
I see.
You know what I'm saying? So like if you run early, because like this was a 10 coster, I would have not have got. I had that out here early. This was another one of those. I would not have been able to res that because I didn't have the money early.
Gotcha.
So running early and often, because sometimes you just have to go for it.
I see.
Because most expensive ice is what hurts you the worst. So if you're running early, keeping me spending my money.
Gotcha. Okay, see, because that's like the opposite of what I would have thought. Because I would have been thinking, oh, you want to prep up before you do a run. Because like thematically, you wouldn't just be like, all right, let me lock in and get fucked up. I don't know what's out there. You'd want to be like, okay, let me have all these contingencies so that if all these, virus or these ices are coming in, I can get past them.
Yeah, because like all the ice I have out here right now, like this one, if I would have had to forfeit, I would have gained 2 credits. You would have lost 2 programs. If you didn't have any programs out, it wasn't going to cost you. And then it would just end the run.
Right.
These were just in the runs. I mean, that's all they were. So really, there wasn't much damage coming out of that.
Right.
So you could, if you would have been running and forcing me to spend.
Gotcha.
Then it was kind of. That's why I could sit back and kind of use that one card and just gain 7 credits because I knew that I had the deal. So there's nuances to it, and it depends on who you're playing. Like these guys have big ice. You're not going to want to run blindly against Jinteki
because he damages you.
Because their ice does net damage.
Okay.
Which I mean doesn't end the game. It just might plink you for net damage here, net damage there, stuff like that. But it's like there's just different nuances with it, you know.
And that's just with any kind of game that's as expansive as this was. You learn the deck, but I'm still going to hold firm that the precons for this they're not great.
No, they're not, and that's why because they came out with a 2.0.
Okay.
And they went through and did that. They came out with that right before they canceled the game.
Okay. No, I remember that.
They did that. They did Corset 2.0, which upgraded some stuff.
Yeah.
And then it just canceled after that.
Damn.
And
so they were prepping to continue going on, kind of like what they're doing with Arkham. Is like, hey, here's Arkham Horror, now these big boxes.
Right.
Except, what was it? It was
WotC.
WotC. Was it WotC that had the Android theme? Okay, I couldn't remember if it was. Yeah, so they're like, nope, we're going to do nothing with it. We're just going to fuck over our D&D players and Magic together. We're going to ruin the things we have.
Yeah, so, I mean, it didn't take much to make these decks good. And like I could take these decks in this, just these core decks, and I could make some really cool decks out of them just because, like I said, I could add I could run this deck, the yellow NBN, and I could put 3 cards from this green deck in it, and you'd be dead in no time if I had the cards in my hand. It's just like there's just those combos that you can build.
Yeah.
And are adding the viruses from these into that, and just different stuff like that you can do. Playing the precons, I mean, there's even playing Wayland. Like my biggest cards in here, I had Scorched Earth. Those ones, like I was telling you about, that I would.
You kept mentioning
that
one.
Here's Scorched Earth.
Oh, okay.
If you're tagged, you take 4 damage if I played that card.
Play only.
But I can't tag you in this deck hardly at all.
Okay,
that's the card I would put in with this because you get tagged like crazy.
And how much meat damage do you need to die?
Well, you have a hand size of 5.
Oh, okay.
So if I had 2 of those cards in my hand,
you just
tag, kill, and you're done. I mean, that's.
And that's just an operation. That's just you just pay it to do it.
So I mean, there's all these different mix, and then with the thousands of cards that came out with this game.
Second Scorcher was at the bottom.
Yeah, well, there should be 3 in there.
I got rid of one of them.
Huh?
I said I got rid of one of them. There was only, unless there was in your deck, I only found one more in here.
Maybe there was just 2 in the precon. Then there should.
I mean, even then, it's like, is there a limit? Like you can only have 3 of like
3 copies of one card, and then when you're doing influence, like you look at. Like at the bottom of there's these little dots.
Oh,
and you
okay.
You can have up to 15 dots worth of other factions total in your deck.
Okay.
So
the big question I have for you, and I think I've asked this during our top 100s and stuff.
Yeah.
Which side do you like to play better?
I like the Corp.
You like Corp?
I win about the same both ways.
Okay.
But I like knowing the hidden information.
And
being in control of it a little bit. Because my favorite Corp to play is Jinteki, which is setting traps.
Okay.
So like if I could, there's a card I could put here and advance twice, and then if you happen to run it and advance it, it'd be 2 net damage per advancement. So I could advance it up to 5, 6, 7 times, and if you hit it, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Or there's snares that I could just do like this. It's an asset you just put down like that, and if you happen to access it like you did that one, it would be 3 net damage and a tag.
Is there a way for runners to ignore or to heal?
What's your hand size? I mean, you just draw back up. I mean, that's. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so you're right. So I mean, you said meat damage was your
meat damage and net damage are the exact same. The only thing that limits your hand size and your stuff is brain.
Okay.
Meat and net are the same, but there's certain cards that say ignore X number of net damage or whatever.
Gotcha.
They have 2 different kinds of damage in that way, but brain's the one that limits your hand size.
Okay.
Which would have been the Corp that you would have run would have been giving me like crazy.
Right. That's kind of where I'm at too. It's like it's like the hidden movement games. I don't like being on the other side where I have to try and figure out what they're. It's like I don't have perfect information, like because there's a little bit of that in Magic. Obviously, It's like if you're playing 1v1, you can see how much mana they have and be like, okay, they didn't exhaust themselves out and they have a hand, so they probably have a counter in there. There's very limited, information that you kind of have to guess. Here, going up against the core, it's like. You just have 10 cards face down, and I'm like, I don't even know what's good to go for anymore.
Yeah. Just the rule of the game is if you do this, what I've learned over the years is be aggressive as a runner.
Gotcha.
Because like if we would have played this mirror match, I would have ran 3 times.
Gotcha.
And made you either res or not. And sometimes you pull a agenda off the top, sometimes you don't. It's a quick start.
I see.
Just be aggressive early and often, and
just pray. Just hope.
I mean that's the thing. A lot of it depends on who you're playing against.
Sure.
I don't have ice that's going to hurt you early.
Yeah.
Jinteki would.
Right.
So it's like I knew. I mean, so if we were playing this opposite way, I'd just hit and just go constantly.
Gotcha.
And make me spend all my money.
Okay.
But
which is what Wayland's all about. Is basically just absorbing all that money so they can just constantly pay for it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But I mean, my favorite thing about this game is the theme. Like, I think the theme and the way that they modified this game, or designed this game, really fits. And I get where they're going with the lingo. I get that, but there's times I find that annoying in most games where it's like, just say deck. Like, it doesn't have to be your grimoire. It doesn't have to be your fucking HQ. It's like, just say deck. Make it. That shit's so annoying. And it's not just, sorcerer is the one where it's like grimoire. It's like, And then, because it just adds questions. Everyone knows what a deck is. Like, you don't have to sit there and be like,
It's just
here's your archives.
It's just the theme. That's all. That reason
It's like you can have your theme on your cards and on the art. You don't have to do the whole fucking rules where it's like you now have to understand. Like it's just... That's not isolated to this one game, but it's like, when you're trying to figure out a deck, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's the archives? That's a discard pile. That's one more thing I have to remember, Yeah, I don't know. I find running being incredibly difficult, especially because you need certain programs to get through certain ices, and if you don't have that card, you just can't do it.
Right, unless you have special operations, like because like this guy has a deal called Inside Job. If you play it, it says make a run on a server and leap the first piece of ice you go. So you could play it and just leap it. And
Gotcha.
He has stuff like that.
Sure.
And she has all these things that brings in. You can search for your programs and find them and
That's
have everything
good.
out. I mean, that's her
Pre-cons!
that's her strength of getting all of her breakers out and just going to town. He's all about sneaking into HQ
and just combining all three of these would be great. It's like, okay, well, you put some of his cards in here to be able to leapfrog in case you get screwed on programs, and you use hers to search for them, and then while you're doing that, you run on R&D or play viruses to mill them.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he does not have any of those, and I see where they were going with him. What's kind of annoying is it's like, hey, okay, he makes you mill by playing viruses. Well, that's not really what he's going to do. So what he seemed to be about was using viruses to cheapen your ice, because he did have cards that were like free runs. Like, it doesn't action, hey, that's free, I gain a shit ton of money, I have all my viruses on your ices, they're cheap now, so this 9 is basically just whoomp through, and then now I get through easier. And I get that, but I didn't have those cards at the very beginning, so it was very difficult to try and do anything.
Well, and another thing is, and I don't remember what the precon deck or noise is, but like whenever I made a runner deck, like I would put 2 or 3 copies of like Corroder or 2 or 3 copies of Mimic. I'd have extra copies of those breakers to be able to find them, and then
Yeah, I mean he has. It seems like his deck is all about weakening.
It is
nice because he has one I just saw that I didn't get. It's cool looking though.
And the one thing that you need to do is also in his deck is once every couple of turns, just go and check.
Yeah.
I mean, because you would have found out I wasn't going to be able to rest that. So I mean, you would have gotten.
Yeah. Well, that's where the medium would have been really good early on. You just have that, so when you do successfully go in, you're like, oh, I can look at 3 cards.
Right.
Ice Carver is one where it's like lowers its strength by all ice encounters lowered by 1.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and you had a Crypsis probably in there too. It would have been a neutral.
Actually, that was the one I said that wasn't super great.
Yeah, it's not great.
Okay,
it's an AI.
I thought you were about to tell me it's amazing. No, I'm like, how?
It's a bit of. I mean, that was another one I was wondering if you were going to get out or not. But
no, he costs 5, and that's the thing. It's like you basically have to spend an action to put a counter on him, and if he encounters a piece of ice, you have to he either gets trashed or you have to pay that counter.
Yeah,
so you have to kind of build him up to be able to have him run.
A lot of this game is paying attention to the other person's money. Yeah, because as soon as I knew you only had those 2 credits on that one card and stuff, that's why I was able to put that big agenda down here, because I knew you were not going to have enough money to break that deal. I mean, so paying attention to money is another thing, especially when you're corp. It's like, okay, he has no way of having enough money to get there.
Exactly.
So do it.
Yeah.
There's windows. You have to kind of set up yourself for windows.
And that was kind of another thing that on my end, where it's like, I already don't have any limit. I have limited information. I don't have a lot of ways to get money. I mean, there are some. My opening hand happened to have the Sure Gamble, so I had 9. I drew another one later on, but at that point now it did cost 5, which I didn't have to pay for it. But it's like, it seems like it's a little bit too much against the runner versus the corp. And that's obviously coming from me who has not played this game.
Like I said, I'm about 50-50.
Okay.
I mean, I could win just as easily in a runner as I can a corp. Just knowing the nuances, and that's
and this is not a game that at the time this was made probably wasn't super easy to get into. like, but then again, neither is Magic. Like, I just taught a friend of mine Magic. I've never had to teach Magic before. It's always just, I always play with people who do. They actually had to teach me when I got back in. So whenever I was teaching him, I was like, oh my god, there's so much to this game I didn't realize. It's the stuff you pick up over time. So it's like, clearly knowing that, you can take this deck, and I probably would have put in cards that allowed him to easier access to money, because you're going to want it, like more viruses, ways to make it cheaper, leapfrog. So there's a lot, but playing precons, it was kind of like, well, I'm not doing anything, and that's not fun. And that's not fun in Magic either, where it's like, man, cool, wish I could draw some fucking mana.
Yeah. The corp that I played, the very first time I ever played this game that hooked me was the Jinteki, the trap deck.
Well, I bet, yeah, it's basically...
Because the first time I played it and I flatlined somebody, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Flatlined them?
Yeah, that's what I call when you
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, because it's funny, when you were mentioning kind of what these decks were doing, I was like, okay, I was kind of getting loose Magic connections. I'm like, okay, Jinteki's your burn deck. This runner's your mill deck. Okay, I'm getting it.
It's Richard Garfield that made this too, so
that's exactly why. That's insane. Well, I mean, so why this game? Why this one out of all the other? Like, why not jump into L5 or that's Feudal Japan, which you don't like?
Right.
Why not Game of Thrones? Why not
I played Game of Thrones?
Why didn't you love it as much as this?
Because it wasn't Andrew Garfield. Or not Andrew Garfield. It wasn't Richard Garfield. No, this one I like the theme of this one. Plus, I like the hidden stuff, and I like the flip-flop of how you play, like a match.
Sure.
Like you get to be the runner and the corp in a match.
Gotcha.
You flip-flop. So you have two decks to build for.
Yeah.
And a skill for. And because like when you play Magic or any of those, it's like, okay, this is my... Or Game of Thrones, this is my,
this is my deck.
This is my deck. And this is what it's going to be. And so it's funner because you can build a corp deck and try to go, and you can build a runner deck, and there's more stuff with it.
Right.
And I just like that how it's the gameplay, the lanes, it just is one of those things that just works in my brain. Just like figuring out all the power and stuff on that card. It was just like. It's like, oh, you're gonna spend 4 for this. Yeah, spend 3, 3, 3, 3, and then
and I was sitting there and I was like, why is it 3? I thought it was 1 each, and then it was the
worm.
The worm. It costs 3 to break that subroutine. I'm like, oh,
yeah, he's not efficient at all. That's not.
That's why he's cheap.
Yeah,
basically, he's more of like
an emergency.
He's super cheap, and again, you could put parasites on it, so it's like, so I don't have to spend my money on its strength. I just spend the 3. So it's like, he'd be really good. This would honestly, I could see this being really solid if you kind of built around him, where you have a shit ton of money. He's cheap, you bring him out, and then you just have a plethora of money. You'd be like, anyway, I'm just going to ignore all that because I can afford to.
Yeah, and the main runner that does money is this guy.
Okay.
Because like that card this is the card that I was going to use pretty frequently against you.
Make a run on HQ. If successful, instead of accessing cards, you may force the corp to lose up to 5.
And then I'd
gain 2 for each credit
loss.
loss.
And then I take 2 tags as well. But I mean, it's like, but it's a count siphon. Like I just steal money, money, and I'm hitting,
Yeah, so you cause them to lose 5, and then you gain 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a 15 credit swap.
You said a count siphon, and I was like, I didn't really listen, and I was like, okay.
And each time I run HQ, I gain 2 credits also. So it's just like
so you just constantly run
money,
HQ,
and then he has some expensive programs you put out, and it's just I mean, they all have their flavor.
It's super cool, and unfortunately, this is just the thing of these kinds of competitive games. Is if you're not in it from the beginning, it's really rough, like, to jump into. Like, if I jumped in on this when it was announced and I was kind of like in that zone. Yeah, I mean, I could see there's a lot here that I do like. Ignoring the fact that it's completely dead. Like, you jump into these games 2-3 years later, you even see it in the cooperative ones, Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror. Well, Arkham Horror, they're redoing all the sets, so that's kind of easier. But it's like, yeah, I'd like to have everything for Marvel Champions, $8,000, like to buy.
Well, that's what I did with Arkham LCG.
Yeah.
Because I was late to it, and I went searching for packs.
Right.
And I found all that junk.
And then there's some that it's like a side scenario. If you want everything, it's like, hey, this is, $400. It's like, no.
Yeah, the only thing I don't have is Barkham.
Yeah, and that's the one that goes for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's like an April Fool's thing anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, though, like, this still surprises me that it died. I was going to make the joke earlier. Huh?
The licensing is why it died. I mean, it was the whole...
I don't get how, like, okay, just don't call it Android Netrunner. Like, call it Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why there was a lot of rumors that they were going to do a Cyberpunk 2077 version.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
You could just change the art and some of the names and then just call it fucking Cyberpunk. But I think Fantasy Flight has 3 failed competitive LCGs. There's no way Asmodee is going to let them attempt it again.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that they would start it up with, because I don't know, game mechanics aren't able to be trademarked.
I don't think so.
They aren't. You can't. So it's like, okay, so why doesn't WotC just use Netrunner and just keep the game going?
You mean Fantasy Flight?
Well, I mean, because WotC has, I guess, yeah. Never mind.
Because WotC wouldn't design.
That's right,
I mean, they could.
They have the Android.
Yeah. WotC could easily just make this, but they're too busy.
See, Android is the universe that Fantasy Flight owns.
Okay.
Netrunner is WotC, because in the 80s, Netrunner was a competitive card game
right.
that WotC had called Netrunner.
Yeah.
So Android is the Android universe, but the actual Netrunner game itself is WotC. And I think that was what the issue was.
Yeah, it's like, at this point, obviously they quit it because of the licensing issues, but I do think it's Fantasy Flight's failed.
Oh, it is.
Things that they're like, we're just not even going to try.
Yeah.
Although, if they did, if they were like, hey, here's, Cyberpunk, it's this game, but rethemed, I know you would be all in on it.
Yeah,
I would probably jump in it at that point as well.
I got this with the year as soon as it came out. And
yeah.
I was there from the beginning.
Yeah. Because I do agree with you. I think that the 2 decks, because it's not like you're making 100-card decks like Commander, or 60-card decks, I think, for Standard. Is it 60? I don't play Standard, so I don't know.
Right here, your 45 runner, 49 corp.
Yeah, and especially if you jump in with the precons, you kind of get an idea and be like, okay. And then, like you said, the community was really welcoming. It's like, hey, I kind of want to make noise, pure mill. How do I do that? Oh, well, okay, we'll do this, this, and this. Oh, neat.
Yeah,
versus Magic, it's just like, you want to make a build deck? I hope you kill yourself. It's like, God.
My first tourney was here in KC. When my very first competitive tourney with Netrunner, I got dead last.
Really?
And I got an award it was the DFL award, Dead Fucking Last award. And but everybody sit down, they're like, when you're doing their deck, try this instead of this.
Gotcha.
And I made friends with all those guys. I played with them for years.
Neat.
Down in Tulsa and everywhere too. And it was just like, was just a good.
That is a heartwarming story.
It
is.
That
is a very, because you don't fucking see those communities anymore.
And then I was winning store championships.
Yeah, you go and picking on the people.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, you got a pre-con? Oh, okay. What are you running? A Whaling Corp? Okay, fucking loser. You were the toxic one at the the local store. Yeah, because if you go to Magic, obviously there are friendly people, but it's like that community is toxic as fuck. And I'm like, wow, way to kill your own community. Wouldn't you want it to grow? No. If people don't spend their entire life savings on their cards, then I don't want to deal with them. So, I'm just all flustered. I want this game to come back. No, I see the potential. I did find the pre-con, because we were going to do a run-through, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm I'm not very frustrated, but I'm getting frustrated. I'm just going to call it here.
Because you've never ran Corp.
No, I haven't, actually.
Right, because the times we've played this, you've always been a runner. You would enjoy Corp more.
I know I would, but then you'd probably run on me, and I'd be like,
maybe
I can't do anything to score.
But, I mean, it would be like, it's 2 totally different games.
It is, yeah.
When you do it, that's another reason I like it. It's because your mindset has to be totally different.
Sure,
either way.
yes. I know, even if I lost this core, it would be probably less frustrating because at least I'd have information. Going in blind, it's kind of like... And the one thing I didn't understand was there was something called Expose.
Yes.
And to me, Expose, I was like, oh, that flips it. But
I just get
to see it.
Yeah.
Because I had parasites in my hand. I'm like, okay, I'm going to expose it, flip it, and then put these on it to start playing viruses. And you're just, I was only getting a look at it, which is still good info. But he didn't have a whole lot of ways to expose either.
Expose is not really a big. I mean, there's a few cards throughout the whole time that's done
That'd be
stuff
like a
that.
good resource, like a expose one card per turn. It's like,
Good,
man,
it's good against this one.
that is very true. Yeah, and that's the other cool thing about this game is you can like. Because in Magic, if I know... Well, Commander's a little bit different because you have a specific guy. So it's like your Commander deck is usually built after... So I can look at who your Commander's... Okay, I know what kind of deck you're about to run. That's kind of this, where it's like, I know what corp you're running, so now... Like, I kind of know what to plan for. And I find that extremely interesting. Versus just a standard deck of Magic where it's like you don't know what they're running until they start playing cards. And you're like, oh, you won turn 2? Okay, that was fun for no one. But, like, it's like, if you have a bunch of runner decks, which I'm assuming for a tournament you have to pre-pick.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you have to have your set list of who's your runner with your card deck list.
Do you have to have, can you only pick 1 and 1? Or
Yep.
That's rough.
Yep, you have 1 runner, 1 corp.
I don't know if you could have, like, 1 and 1 in reserve.
Nope.
Dang. That's rough. But still, it's like, you go up against the, what is it, Jinteki?
Yeah.
That's like... you sit down and you play Noise against someone and you're like, okay, that was really good, I won. And they pull out Jinteki and you're like,
right,
I'm fucked.
Well, and it's like, because, and what's cool is like, because these Jinteki, NBN, HB, Wayland, they have several different
like actual
ID
abilities?
cards.
Gotcha.
So, like, that's how they did with the corps. So, like, this is called the Personal Evolution one, but there was a House of 1,000 Nights. You know, there's all these different versions. There was those 4 were the main corporations, but there was these branches under them.
With different ways to actually play them.
So, it's like, I'm playing Jinteki, you have 8 different IDs to choose
I was going to ask.
And it had different card limits, it had different abilities.
Okay. That's cool. Because I was going to ask, I know we obviously just have the precons here, like I've said over and over. But it's like, how many different runners did they have? Did they expand on corporations, or did they just do, like, different versions?
Well, there's 4 corporations.
Okay.
And there's probably about, God, I'm spitballing here, probably maybe 8 to 10 different.
Okay, so they never added, like, another corporation.
And then there's 3 runners. Well, no, they added 2. So initially there was 3 runner setups. The 3 we have here. That was for the longest time, and then they came out with 2 other ones.
And did they do the same thing with the runners? It's just have different abilities? Okay.
Yeah, like there's probably 7 or 8 different in the Anarchs, and then this is because those are Anarchs, and these are the I can't remember what the names of the deals are. Those are the Shapers, Anarchs, and I don't know, but yeah, there was just all these different IDs.
That's cool. I actually like that. That's it keeps it condensed still with variety versus being like, hey, we have 60 different runners. It's like, ugh, because these games can get extremely bloated. That's why I like LCGs a lot more, because it's still condensed. It's a lot of cards and a lot of packs, but it's still condensed versus a CCG where you have to go through third markets to be like, I need this one card and I can buy it online for $15. Because like I have a commander deck that I made proxies for, because at the time every land in that, a friend of mine had the legitimate cards they let me borrow, but at the time each land in that deck was like $40 or $50, and I'm like, there's no way I'm building this deck legitimately.
Right.
I'm never gonna play in tournaments, so it is nice. Yeah, I mean, lot of good things to love about this. I definitely see it, even though our initial attempt to run through, I was like, all right.
Yeah, I really think you would have been. That one would have been more your speed, I think.
Even then, it's like I still feel like it would be kind of like, it's like these decks are like the LaCroix, so it's like you'd be like, oh well, that's what this one does. It's like, well, no, that's what that's supposed to do, but it doesn't.
Of the 3 runners, the most complete, like with all the breakers, with all that, is probably that one.
Is that one,
because her breakers are solid out of the deal.
I see.
And not to keep this going any longer than it needs to be, this one has a lot of card draw.
Oh,
like Diesel's card draw.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is this one had decent card draw, just a static
but this card right here is an awesome program to put out. Because it's just click 2
as an
credits.
action, gain 2 money. Yeah.
So it's just like, and it's a program, so you just set it out.
It's a program, but it still costs 2 of your memory.
Right, but she has
ways of gaining memory.
She has memory chips you can put out that increase your memory.
Okay.
There's all these different things. A toolbox. This is her big expensive
9
thing she puts out.
plus
It adds,
2 memory plus 2 link. Oh, you just get 2 to help pay for icebreakers.
Yeah. I mean, she's all about getting her stuff out. And
So she's the one where what I was trying to play him as. It's kind of like set up and then jump in.
And then all the drawn cards. She has
see.
modded, which is install a program, decreasing cost by 3.
Ooh, nice.
I mean, she's got a lot of cool stuff to go on with her.
And that's
everything.
I mean, that's another thing that's great. Obviously it's by Richard Garfield. Every play style is different. When you mentioned mill, I'm like, I like mill decks in Magic. That'll be good. It's not the same.
You're right. It's
So, which is a props to him as a designer. He didn't just re-theme Magic and just put it in and just be like, all right, here you go. Because that's just not what I thought he was meant to do. He didn't do. But that's cool. So it's like, it's just different play styles. Normally, my play style in Magic, it's varied. I usually really like alternate ways to win versus just knocking someone's life down to 0. Are there other ways to win in this? Is it or is
the runner wins by stealing 7 agenda points or decking the corp?
Okay.
And
that's it. There's no other alternate card where it's like something else. Okay.
And the corp wins by scoring 7 or killing the runner.
Okay.
That's your
that's it.
your
Got it. So different just play styles allow for creativity, which is really good. And I know they had a lot of. Did they have a bunch of expansions for this?
Oh God. Yes.
Because I know didn't they do like some story?
There was a terminal directive was a thing they came out with about year and a half, 2 years before the game went out.
Okay.
And it was like it was like a legacy, like you put stickers on. You put stickers on cards. You did stuff.
I remember.
And you played through a story, and it was pretty good.
Okay.
Me and John actually played through it all the way.
I remember. Yeah. That's why I kind of knew about it because wasn't that like kind of a revamp also?
No, it came out right before the second edition stuff. They were talking about second edition about the time that came out.
I see.
And it's a fun one. But yeah, there's so many. God,
it was competitive? The story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but talking about... So each cycle had 6 expansions in it. And a big box expansion. So there were 6 packs. Kind of like, think about Arkham.
Oh, okay.
There's like 6 of the clamshells and then a big box,
and
right?
The starting box.
They had 8 cycles.
Wow.
9 cycles. I mean, they had tons of cards out for it. I mean, it was a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah. Damn.
And I mean, I had so many cards, so much for this. And but yeah, this is just it was. Even though
came out in 2012.
12. That's what time. Yeah, so I said 14, but this was the. This will always be. I mean, my competitive card game. I mean, it doesn't matter what else comes out. I mean, this is always going to be it. That's why I went back and got the core set after selling everything because I was salty. I was salty because when they canceled it and nobody was playing it anymore, and I was like, I sold it for $1,200 to get everything or whatever, and it was like, I'm never gonna play it. $1,200.
Yeah,
I'll do it. And then somebody gave me this core set for free because they were just getting rid of it, and I was like, I'll get it just for nostalgia purposes and stuff. But now I wish I wouldn't have gotten rid of it just because it's my thing. Yeah,
and then now they're going to come back and be like, "Hey, it's Cyberpunk Netrunner, and all the stuff from before is you can use," and you're going to be
I'll
like,
just rebuy it, whatever.
You're just like, oh well, yeah. Because like whenever they did Legend of the Five Rings, they did like each tournament. From what I heard, the winner of the tournament, whatever clan you used, changed like the story in the RPG. I'm like, oh, that's really that's what I was told because I had a friend who was into both. And I'm like, oh, that's really fucking cool. So Fantasy Flight does great jobs when they just can't, for some reason, keep it alive. But I know no one who played Game of Thrones. Like, it was this or Legend of the Five Rings.
I didn't do first edition Game of Thrones. I did the revamped version that stopped a few years back too.
Yeah.
And I played it competitively for a few tournaments, and it was fun.
Sure.
It wasn't the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a whole completely different style of game. And
Legend of the Five Rings I did play a couple times, and a friend of mine bought it at the time. We were really into the RPG, and it had a lot of cool systems too. I don't remember any of them, but I remember it being like, oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
But, yeah, who knows? I mean, if we go off the Tom Vassell method, a great game will always be reprinted. This is a theme that I because the mechanics here are solid. I think with the way Fantasy Flight does their LCGs now, I think if it's reprinted, they can clean it up, make their precons better, like how their Marvel Champion stuff is, and probably I don't think the rules are like a mess, but maybe like kind of tone it down a little bit on the lingo, like to make it a little bit more universal, so people who want to jump in can just kind of fucking.
There's a little learning curve, but I like having the lingo.
I like it after you play it, but
Mm-hmm.
whenever you're trying to get people into it, it's kind of like, it's just I need, what the fuck is a sub like what, a subroutine? What is that? You know, but yeah. Well, you have anything else you want to talk about? Who's your favorite corp in your runner? Oh, you did say Jinteki and Noise.
Well, Jinteki's my favorite corp.
Corp.
Now there's a different version of this that actually I like this one. I use personal evolution still quite a bit because every time you steal an agenda, you take a net damage too.
Oh yeah.
So what I do is when I pre-con that, or when I made my own deck, I put a bunch of 1-point agendas, and I wouldn't even protect them. I would just throw a bunch of them out here, and then if you didn't run them, I just advance, score.
Gotcha.
Or, but no, that one, and then
net damage was just damage.
It's just
right?
damage. Just
okay.
you lose. I get to take a card out of your hand at random.
Okay. But then, so then like the wild side just kind of counters that because they get to draw 2 cards each turn. Okay, I see.
But if you take 3 net damage, I take 3
You
cards.
take
out
3
of your
cards
hand.
and I draw 2.
But if I ever have to take more cards than what you have in hand, you die.
You die, okay.
And then runner-wise...
So you run the risk if you have a bunch of 1-pointers, but I have card draw, then it's like...
Right, but if you lose it before... Because you draw at the start of your turn.
True.
So, I mean, if you're... You know...
You can just ping one at a time, I think. So I'm going to take that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop.
Well, and then there's a House of Knives agenda that's in here that every time you make a run, you score it and you get 3 counters on it, and every time you make a run, I can spend a counter for net damage.
Oh, gotcha.
So then when you're running, you can take net damage, damage.
Gotcha.
It's a just mean deck.
And these... I mean, because I had another wild side, and it's like, what if I just played that?
Well, those are... Because there's a little diamond next to their name. See where it says wild side?
Only one out?
That's unique, yeah.
Okay. I was wondering about that. Because I was like, man, so just draw 4 cards, but... Okay. For 10 to have 2 actions.
And then my favorite runner that I played over the years was a decked out Noise.
Okay.
There's a lot of runners though over the years that like Andromeda was one from this faction, and you just started the game with 9 cards. You didn't have any abilities. You start the game with 9 cards instead of 5.
That's not bad.
And a 45 card deck. I mean, that's a fifth of your deck.
That's not bad.
And you can
that's not bad.
So they were really creative in their
Well, like any competitive card game, if you're drawing, you're winning. Is kind of how it works. It's like, so that's why I went for card draw early, because I'm like, well, I don't need to spend actions anymore to draw cards. Yeah, I think there is a little bit of refining I could see them doing if they ever did reprint it. Not really, because I don't know the cards as much. In terms of just overall mechanics, probably, if I was spitballing, maybe 5 actions for the runner. That might be a little busted.
They even it out though, because I only get 3. And,
yeah.
And then one of them's I have to draw a card because that's the timer of the game. So
True.
I mean, that never really came into an issue when we were like,
it was more of just the hidden information. I think is like,
yeah.
That's a really powerful advantage, and because you can just have a shit ton out, it's kind of like, well, I can only, I guess, run multiple lanes. So, yeah. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you giving Android Netrunner?
It's always going to be a 10.
It's got a 4. Yeah,
it's always going to be a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew yours was going to be a 10. These kind of games don't do it a whole lot for me anymore. Just because, well, one, this is dead, so even if I liked it a lot, I can't play it. I mean, I guess I could. I could buy all this stuff and just play casual, which is what I would do anyway. I think I'm sitting around a 7. I think a 7's, like, this game is good. I think if I played it, this could go up to an 8 if I played it a lot.
If you play this Corp.
No, because I know if I played this against the Corp, you would just run and I wouldn't be able to do anything against the Corp.
Right, but it's different. Like you said, it's different when you're playing the Corp because you don't have to be aggressive. Like you can...
True.
You can set up.
You can just set up and do a bunch of stuff, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at a 7. which I'm not too far off from. We're like splitting it because I was looking up. I'm like, what's it rated right now on Board Game Geek?
Because it's like in the 40s or 50s or maybe 60s now, as far as the
overall 68.
Yeah,
yeah, it's a 7.9,
which is crazy because of it being, you know, still up there because it used to be in the teens and 20s.
Yeah, well, and you gotta make room for Brass and all the 6 other games that are duplicates.
Yeah,
the top 100 is a solid list. No, no deviation whatsoever.
Right.
But yeah, that's our thoughts on Android Netrunner. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.